Hey, everybody. Good morning and welcome back to the Lioness Den. Today, we are here to do our mental health mid-year check-in. And look, guys, it's going to be great. We're going to have a conversation with some professionals talking about how to make it through this mid-year. We started off in January. We were happy. It was a new year. We had something new going on. And right now, we're in between our goals. A lot of us are in between our goals. We are tracking our progress. How far have I gone with what I decided? And what has been my stumbling block or obstacle? So, before we get into this, I want you to do this with me. Go to your social media right now. Find the Lioness Den. I'm doing it while I'm telling you about it. I'm doing the same exact thing. Telling you and doing it myself. Let's do it together, guys. Let's find the Lioness Den. If you're already on there, go to the Lioness Den and let's share this to our pages so that we can help someone else. Share the Lioness Den and let's like it, love it, tag other people, let them know what's going on today on the Lioness Den. So right now, just tag all your pages, all your people, and let them know what's going on the Lioness Den because our mental health is so important. And a lot of times we work on everything else, but we don't take the time to cover our mental health. So right now, just do it with me. I'm doing it. I'm going to all my pages that I have right now, and I'm just posting mental health mid-year checkup. Go post. This is really going to be a session that helps you as we move forward through the next 6 months of the year. We're 3 months in, guys. Not 3 months. Oh my gosh, 6 months. Look, see, this is why we need this session to figure out where we are. So stick with us as we go into the Lioness Den. Hey, everybody, we are back. We're back and we are ready. Look, some of my very favorite people in the world are coming to join us today. And I'm not going to even try to explain to you because when you see who's with me, you will understand. So, without further ado, here are the ladies of today's session. Hi, Ebony. Hi, Adrienne. Oh my goodness, it seems like forever since we've been together here, ladies. I don't know about you. Does it feel the same way?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Like we never left.
Like we never Hey, that's the good part. When it feels like we never left, that means we just catch up from where we left
We're
off.
connected.
Yes. So if you guys would do me the great favor of just introducing yourself for those who are new to the Lioness Den. Yeah, just introducing yourself. We can start with Adrienne and then Ebony.
Hi, guys. I'm Adrienne Hollimon. I am a life coach, author, and speaker. And I'm glad to be here with you today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ebony. I am a therapist, an author, and a teacher.
All right. And hi guys, I'm Lydia. And this is the Lioness Den. I think y'all know me. I just thought it'd be funny to do it anyway. Anyway, ladies, today we want to touch on just this mid-year check-in. We're 6 months into the year. And as I said in the opener, in January, everyone was excited. Hey, look, they had all of these great goals. Um, they had all of these plans for the year. And now we're 6 months in, and we run into those places where people are just still, they're trying to figure it out now. Because I thought I would be in this place by now, and I'm not. The summer is coming, and I thought I would be able to plan my vacation, and I can't. And it's sort of like, not the professional Ebony, but I think it's like the summer blues. I think sometimes we find ourselves at the summer blues. What do we do? let's start with just the summer blues. Like, what is your um, what do you say to people who are in this spot of the summer blues?
So I think, first and foremost, maybe we change the language in terms of summer blues, right? I
Yes,
think
ma'am.
that sometimes what we say to ourselves about where we are oftentimes, really um, kind of sets the stage or the path in which we're in. And I always say, let's start off with what's been going well, what we've done in the last 6 months, as opposed to focusing on what we have not done that we said we would do, um, you know, in those 6 months. And I think, for the most part, getting ourselves to the point where we are building upon what's been going well, as opposed to trying to fix what's not been done or what's not going well, is a better way to start, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
it's really about us, taking a look at where, what are the things that I've done well in these past 6 months, as opposed to what I wanted, instead of
Mm,
looking at it from the other perspective. Does that make sense? Because a lot of
yeah.
times we're like, it's 6 months and I haven't done this and I haven't done that. Well, let's start off with, it's 6 months and I've been able to do this, I've been able to do that. Now I can take this next 6 months to do this or that. So I think a lot of times changing the way we look at things, changing our focus in terms of what we are building upon is very important. And some people may say, well, that's easier said than done. And it's like, maybe true, but it also takes a level of effort on our part in terms of what is it that we want. If we want these next 6 months to be better than
Hmm.
the previous 6 months, then we have to build upon it, as opposed to looking at the deficits. So that's like the first thing that comes to mind. We are truly in control of every day,
Yeah.
from a mental standpoint, from an
Yeah.
emotional standpoint. Of course, we can't negate our feelings. We can't negate, when we feel a certain way about something, so that we don't have to argue about how we feel, but it's what you do about how you feel that
Mhm.
really matters. And that is the focus, right? Because we can sit in our blues all day long, but then at
Mhm.
what point do you give yourself permission to come out of those blues
Right.
and to change them? And so that's what I would say.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I like that, Ebony, because I just think about when our perspective will either empower
Hmm.
or paralyze.
Yes.
So when you're thinking about it from what you haven't done and what you should have done and with da 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 da, that's paralyzing. That's taking your energy, that's taking your creativity, that's taking all the stuff that you need to move it to where you want it to be. So when you begin to be intentional about it and
Yeah.
decide that I'm going to celebrate my small successes, I'm going to celebrate what has worked well, just doing that empowers you. It
Hmm.
energizes you like, oh, I
Yeah.
did do that. I forgot about that. This is good. And it begins to build from where you want to build, not from what you didn't do.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's a major thing because um our human brains, and this is what I see a lot of times, our human brains will go to the negative thing first.
Hmm.
So that's the first thing we'll see. I wanted to and I didn't, instead of I've accomplished and I just had more to do.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
It's amazing because Adrienne did the session in January with us of just getting our goals together.
Yes.
And the first thing that one of the people said in the session was what they couldn't do.
Yep.
Mhm.
They told her what they couldn't do, and she said, "Why can't you do this?" And they literally had a lot of reasons for why they could not do
Yep.
the thing that they had on their board.
Right.
This is the thing, they wrote it on their board, but they had the reason why they could not do it, and they were
Right.
going to switch to doing something else instead of going towards what they wanted to do. So
Yep.
our brains just automatically take that, let's go the other way. But Ebony, that was awesome because you're like, let's just count up what we already did.
first. And let's start with that so that, that's the direction in which we take. And I think the other thing is, being reflective is really thinking about the goals that we set, right? Or what our intention is for the year. And what I mean by that is in January, don't put 5 things on there. Like, why, sometimes there's something in us that says, I should do this, I should do this, by this time, I should do this. And then June comes and we're like, I didn't do, and it gets to that point where it's like, is it really realistic? Like, even if you just have one thing or 2 things, it's okay. Just knock that one thing out. Right. And then you're able, to get to something else. And I relate this to the blues, and to just really being down on ourselves, because I think sometimes there is a compelling thought that I should be here. So I need to do these 5 things because this is where I should be. And one of the things that I talk to people about all the time is, what standard is that? And what are you basing that on? Who gave you that standard? And so we set ourselves up for feeling for feeling like we haven't done something, or we set ourselves up for feeling sad and defeated, only because we didn't count the cost. We didn't, really sit down and say, is this realistic? I could do it, but what would that mean for my mental health? What would that mean, for me as it relates to my time and my investment and my commitment? All of those things. And so, I think sometimes we need to be more gracious towards ourselves as we talk about, this check-in point. It's like, am I being gracious to me in terms of the level of responsibility that I put on myself to obtain goals that may not even be attainable in the amount of time that I want to make them happen.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Because we when you talked about the standard, who gave you this standard? That Lady Suzette Spence says, who told you this? Who told you this is where you were supposed to be? Who told you? Because a lot of times we base what our standard is on what someone told us. Right. They told us, you grow up, you're gonna be a doctor. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. And so we base our standards on that. And then we hold ourselves to someone else's standards. So that was, I don't want to reiterate what you already said or re-say what you already said. But yeah, who told you that? Who told you that this is where you're supposed to be?
And sometimes we're looking, those standards are set by society, social media. So the person on social media is there with her husband, and you see all this wonderful stuff, and she's accomplishing this, and you should be able to get it too with this being the single mom with the 2 kids, and the kids got activities, and they got all of this, and you're setting your standards according to things, as Ebony said, are not realistic. You may not have the support systems that they have. You don't know their story. You don't know how much of it is Photoshopped.
Hey, a lot of it is Photoshopped. A lot of it Photoshop.
That life may be filtered and you don't know the real deal.
Yeah. A lot of it is when we base our anything on social media. It's always something that's not true. That's just false. And it's like, why are we doing that? Because the people you see on the screen are not your everyday context.
Yes.
It's like watching a movie and saying that Superman is going to fly past the window. And we know Superman's not going to fly past the window, but social media can be the same exact way, where we're expecting to see Superman, and you are the Superman for yourself. You really are. And so as we move forward, because not only do we as adults go through this, but kids go through this a lot of trying to live up to the person next to them, which is something that we do. Like, oh, well, Ebony has Triple G, and she has a podcast, and she has a practice. And why do I only have?
That's good.
Yeah. Why do I only? Because I think I only, or my little takes my great and makes it small, when you never know that what you're counting as little, someone else is looking at as great. Maybe we need to, like you said, Ebony, change our language from blues to what I've already done, from little to great. You know, Adrienne, when we were talking at the beginning of the year, you talked about the plan when we have these different goals, and how that we have the goals, but we don't plan for the goals. So we automatically set ourselves up to fail. Can we talk a little bit about the planning? Because a lot of times our planning and sticking to the plan is what gets us to this spot where we are today.
Right. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain, so that when men read it, they can run by it, right? They can run, they can do what they see. So a lot of times when we're not planning, it's in our head. And we know, if it's anything like me, my head is like the computer desktop. I got about 15 tabs open, and all of them are frozen. So, and I'm expecting something to happen from all these frozen tabs. It's not going to happen if it's not written. Yep. If I don't have set goals that says, hey, I'm going to do this on this day, and these are my 3 steps, and I'm going to, over this next week, I'm going to do these things, and I'm not looking at it and check. I can tell you for myself, if I don't write it, or if I write it and don't look at it, it doesn't happen. Or it happens a month later, when it really would have happened in about a week had I remembered to look at it. Okay. So if we don't, what they say, if we don't plan, if we plan to fail, we fail to plan, or something like that.
Well, the plan means you plan to fail.
Yeah, you plan to fail. If you don't actually plan, then you're planning to fail. Right? That's or you're going to make your progress, which you could have done in 3 months, or you could have done it in the 6 months. It's going to take you a year to 2, because every time you remember a piece, you go, oh, okay, let me go back and get that. So it is really significant to write your goals, to write some short-term goals, some long-term goals. If you're going to accomplish it over the year, break it up into quarters, break it up into months, so that you have achievable goals, things that are actually time measured and realistic that you can do.
Yes.
Because if you don't put those time frames on it, and those realistic goals and plans and activities that accompany it, it doesn't happen, because it's all too foggy. It's still floating around up here. You've got to make it plain.
Yeah.
I was about to talk about the fogginess, because a lot of us are foggy because we don't write anything down. A couple of weeks ago, and y'all know I don't get very spiritual, but I know that God said something to me a couple of weeks ago. He said to me that I was an emotional hoarder, because my mental ability had this much space in it. And he's doing different things with me, different things he do with us, but he's doing it in that much space because our brains are full of everything else. And so we give him very little space, because we keep cramming it in. And this happened 15, 20 years ago. I'm going to tell you, if you are still concentrating on what happened 15 or 20 years ago, if you are still stuck in 1975, call Ebony Vaughan. Help her. Let her help you to start throwing stuff away. She's like, if you ever watch Hoarders, the show, Ebony can be that expert that comes in and say, yes, baby, you can let this go now. You can throw that in the trash now. Because that's what we are. We become emotional hoarders. And so we can't reach our goals or pull ourselves out of the slump sometimes, because we're still working on 1975. This happened to me, and we haven't talked it out with a professional.
Yeah. And I think, another part to that too is, when you talk about the planning, when you talk about the hoarding, the other part is patience. Like, we're not always as patient and kind to ourselves as we need to be, right? And so oftentimes, that fogginess comes because we're trying to do too much. We're trying to remember too much. We're trying to get all of this stuff done. And like she talked about, it's not written down. But the other part to that is we aren't taking the time to be kind to ourselves, to give ourselves grace, and to move at a pace that we have the capacity for. And I think that's the part that we really, have to think about. It's always good to pray for clarity, but then we must seek clarity by, being patient and by, doing things in a strategic and a methodical way, which sometimes means that you're not all over the place. Like
Right.
sometimes we're all over the place in terms of our plans, in terms of how we go about doing our plans. Some people think that slow is a bad thing, but slow ain't always a bad thing. Moving at a pace that you can stomach is important. And, because we want to rush to something, but we rush to nothing, and it's so important for us to understand that, because fogginess is real. That fogginess, it leads to confusion, it leads to doubt. Okay, because we've established a plan, but then because we're foggy and there's lack of clarity, now we're even questioning whether or not we could do it. So
Right.
it's all of these things that that really come from that place of us not being patient with ourselves, with us not honoring our real capacity and our bandwidth.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was going to say earlier is that when Ebony talked about being kind to yourselves, I'll often say to people when they're like criticizing themselves, okay, this is someone else in the same position. They're dealing with the same thing that you're dealing with. What would you say to them? Oh, well, I tell them to do this, and they give them all kinds of grace and mercy and kindness. But when it comes to ourselves, we're super critical. And so I tell them, please give yourself that same grace, that same kindness that you give to others. Give it to yourself first, right? And then something else I was thinking about is sometimes when we're looking at our plans, we are 6 months in, but when we wrote those plans 6 months ago, we've grown since then.
Mm-hmm.
We don't take into account, we don't consider that, okay, the person I was 6 months ago when I wrote this, that is what I heard, but there's a shift that needs to go on right now.
That's
and so
right.
when you're looking at where you are, you have to take all that into consideration, and don't be afraid to shift.
Right.
Don't be afraid to change those plans. Don't be afraid to alter, because that's not where you are now. When you what is it? When you learn something, when you know something, then you do something. You learn more, you do more. So whatever you wrote in January, there's something that you've learned since then that you need to add upon, that you need to shift. And so that may shift the whole program, or it may not shift the whole program, but it just may. So don't be afraid to make the shift.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. The shift and the pivot is so important, because sometimes we just walk into greater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I think sometimes we don't take inventory of, that I've just walked into greater. So the plan that I made has to be made bigger to encompass everything. And I can't get upset with, oh, I didn't get everything, because what I started with, like you said, was a seed. It's like a plant. I started with a seed, but now I got flowers and I got branches, and I still need to tend to all of it with the slow, patient kindness to myself. Right, Ebony? Did I get them all in?
Yeah, that pace, man. It's like, what pace do we have? And, this check-in, I think, is really good as well, because sometimes we can be, we could be moving at a steady pace, and we could be working, but then it might require a break. It might require maybe a couple of weeks, a weekend, a month, or whatever. We have to learn, and we have to learn, when should I take a break? When should I take a few steps back so that I can throttle forward? So that's the other thing too, when you're thinking about checking in. And I think that checking in is so important, because we have to do that, especially if we want to be productive, especially if we want to be the best versions of ourselves as it relates to, operating and fulfilling purpose. We have to take those moments of reflection and those seasons of, what, it's time for me to rest. And what does that look like? And we're in June now. Sunlight, nature, water, like all of those things, we now can come out and begin to experience them, so that we can be better, so that we can be more productive, so that we can have that sense of clarity when we take a moment to breathe, take a moment to intake that sunlight and all of the natural elements, that we have now that we are in this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As we move forward, take a drive. Sometimes I find that sometimes just a drive to somewhere that you don't know where you're going. You guys know Ellie Wilson, who is my cohort here. But she used to say, turn off your GPS and take a drive. Turn off your GPS and take a drive, because when you turn off your GPS, you're just exploring, which gives you a whole different view. You can turn it back on once you get, good and lost or whatever, but turn it off and just drive. Here in Maryland, Lock Raven Reservoir, it's so wide that if you're just driving around it, it can take you about a half an hour just to get around it. But it's water and the air, just a drive to take a moment just to breathe. Because it's easy for us to get overwhelmed. I think that's the word. A lot of people, they don't like to say it. They say this, that it's overwhelmed, to get overwhelmed with all of the boxes that we've hoarded in our head. So you become a little overwhelmed because I got all of these boxes and all of these things that I'm trying to check off. And now it's already June. Cause Ebony's saying it calm. I love Ebony. She's saying it real calm. But they're saying like this, it is already June. I only got 6 months left. That's literally how they said it to us. I only got 6 months left, and it's already June. Not, oh wow, I'm in June. Look how much I've accomplished and how much more that I plan to do. It's already June, and I only got 6 months, because when you put the I only on it, it gives you that urgency that I need to run and do something right now. I mean, am I right, ladies?
Yeah.
And so then when I think about it this way, so what happens if it doesn't happen by December 31st?
Yes.
Does God fall off the throne?
Yes.
Nope. You just keep it moving. There is no hard, fast deadline that those are self-imposed deadlines. You created the deadline of December 31st. Create a new one.
Absolutely.
That's
I was thinking the same thing.
That is, because it's true. You actually have the power.
Yeah.
Right.
We sometimes give our power to the situation, not understanding that we have the power to just speak it and change the situation.
Yeah.
Just speak it and change the situation. We've already been given dominion over the situation, and all we have to do is say, "Oh, I can do that next week." Like me and Adrienne was just talking earlier, and I know she could hear a little stress in my voice. Like things are not going well exactly the way I want it to go for the next few years. Not years. The next few weeks, because we're doing something that we had set up. And she said, we can just change it to next month. We don't have to do it right now, because we're talking and I'm explaining my stress to her. Literally is what I was doing. Adrienne, this is this. And I'm explaining my stress to her. And she's like, and so what about just doing it next month? But this is what you need, guys. This is why the Adriennes, and I can't stress this enough, the Adriennes and the Ebonies and the LaDawns, that's why they exist. Because sometimes you don't have the ability or the capacity, let's be honest, to say, oh, I can just say something different and do something different. You caught up here, you're like swirling. You're swirling, and you just need to call sometimes a professional. And it's not to say that you are, because this is the one thing people get when you say call a professional to help you iron it out. It's not that you're crazy. Am I right, Ebony?
That's right.
It's not that you're crazy. You just need somebody to say, let's talk this out.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about the drones and how the drones take an aerial view,
yeah,
when you're in the midst of it, all you see is the stuff. When you have somebody that's looking at the whole big picture and they're like, well, let's just move it. Well, why not just this? And that's where your experts and your professional, your subject matter experts and professionals come in. They're looking at it from a different level. You're in the midst of it, and sometimes your vision is short-sighted because all you can see was up close.
Yep, absolutely. That was hot, Adrienne. That was
good. That's
for real.
Good.
That was real good, because that's exactly what we do. While you were saying it, I was thinking of situations that, even the one we talked about earlier, like I'm looking like this and I'm not seeing what's above me, because you're outside going, maybe why are you tripping? And I'm sitting in here tripping, trying to make a next plan. Sometimes we have to step back away from the plan and do
Yeah.
like Ebony said, breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen who are watching, look, if you have a question, please put it in the chat. Take advantage of having a few minutes to hear from these ladies because, as you can see, without anyone asking questions, just us having our regular conversation, there is such wisdom. And you guys know I can go on and on about how much I love you guys and how much you help me. But take advantage because this may be the person you need to call, and you may need to know how to call them. So if you have a question, if you want to make a comment, please just jump right in the comments and join the conversation. With that being said, how important is it to take some sort of, because I know you said take a break, Ebony, but to take some sort of vacation, even if you don't go away? How important is that?
It is so important to become creative with ways to take a moment to step back. And I think you talked about it a few minutes ago, Lydia, when you said take a drive. There's so many places that you can get in your car and go to. Even if you stay at your home, go outside, do things, research. Now, sometimes it takes research to find those things that, for some of us, if we're dealing with childcare, if we're dealing with summer camps and all of the expenses that comes with the summer, for some people it may, be a stretch, but taking that time to invest in searching for things that you can do as a family and also things that you can do individually to take that step back. Sometimes a step back is just, unplugging and staying home and, being in your slippers or watching movies or listening to music, whatever those things are. I think that sometimes we have an expectation of what vacation looks like. We have an expectation of what it should be, but we may not have the capacity for that. So flexibility is important. Sometimes we look at what everybody else is doing, which we've already talked about, and we're not flexible enough to do with what is in our reach. But the other part to that is plan ahead. If you know that you want to do something in June or July or August, maybe you need to start the year before, or maybe you need to start 6 months before. And that way, putting in $10 here or $20 here or something like that, then you'll have something for the summer. And I'm not assuming that money is a barrier for all, but there are those things. We're talking about how can everybody
Yes.
take a step back. And I believe that if we are invested in taking a step back, then we'll take the time to plan that step back, but then we'll also be open and flexible in terms of what that step back is. And if you have young children, it's going to be very important for you to not only do things with your children, but then you have to find moments and days or weekends or weeks, whichever works for you. Now you know I done went from moments to weeks because it depends. Everybody doesn't have the same scenario.
Yep.
But you have to steal those moments, And I know in some of our other sessions we talked about even if those moments are in your car.
Yes.
You get that good meal without nobody asking, can I have some?
Can I have some? Yes, you know how that one is with the kids,
or
man.
yeah, or walking, through all of the around all of the lakes in the area before you go home or before you pick up your kids, or just if you're off work and your kid can go to daycare or can go to summer camp, instead of saying, well, they can just stay home with me, maybe they need to go, so then you can take that day for you, whatever works for you. And everybody's situation is different, but find what you can do. But it's important to take those moments to breathe.
Yes. So we had a question, and the question is, How does one garner the courage and give themselves grace when plan A, B, and C are exhausted?
So the neat thing about that is our alphabet has at least 26 letters.
Yes.
So I guess the issue is you're now at D, E, and F.
Absolutely.
You just choose to go to whatever the next plans are.
Yes.
It's just, as we talked about earlier, the pivot and the shift. Okay,
Yes.
A, B, and C didn't work for whatever reasons. You may want to see why they didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But then you begin letter D, and begin to outline what that looks like. Begin to outline what E looks like. How many times did Disney fail? How many times did Kentucky Fried Chicken, the Colonel, fail? How many times? You'll find the people who are most successful probably have failed the most.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I want to tag on that language part, because you used the word exhausted. Maybe we shouldn't use that word. It didn't work. I thought it would. It didn't work. Let's go to something else. Exhausted it sounds, are you saying the options are exhausted, or are you saying you're exhausted from the option? So I think that it's important for us to recognize the language that we use, and what we tell ourselves makes all the difference. What are we saying to ourselves?
That's right.
And that shifting that Adrienne is, we got to learn to be flexible with ourselves.
Yes.
We can't be this rigid, and especially because life keeps lifing. It just keeps happening over and over again, and having this rigid set in terms of this is the way it's supposed to be. We have to begin to give ourselves more grace and be willing to be flexible.
Yeah. If I was to add anything, and I'm not a professional, guys, but I would say this, take A, B, and C and begin to pull out the good parts and make a list of what went right in A, B, and C. Because as you go into D, what went right in A, B, and C may help you to plan D, E, and F and have a different outcome. Sometimes when we look, and we just throw the whole situation away instead of saying, no, the lighting in this picture was good. Oh, the sound in that video was good. And we might be able to combine A and B and C and come out with a better D. That's just one of the things. I don't know, but like I said, I'm not the professional. Professionals are here, but that's just a small thought from me.
I was going to say, one of the things when I started discovering your treasures, or discovering treasures life coaches, there've been people haven't noticed, but there've been many shifts, and I'm in the process of another shift. And so it's not that A, B, and C didn't work. I'm refining A, I then refine B, and then I refine C, and I'm over here probably around G and H, and I'm still refining, because as long as you're living, you're going to be refining.
Yeah, we evolve and we grow. That's one of the things that people, when you feel like it's not working. I mean, I can say clearly that there were days when, and Ebony was here and you were here when we first started, and you look at the number on the screen and it says 0. And you just keep talking, right, Ebony? Because I know you've seen it. You just keep talking to that 0. You
as
keep
if it's at 200
until it begins to expand and expand. But when you're looking at that, if you looked at that, for a whole year, and we looked at it, and you guys know, because you've done this, you looked at it and you go month after month, week after week, and you see that the number doesn't go up or the number doesn't fluctuate, you sometimes will find yourself being discouraged. What can I do better? When if I stay consistent, because consistency, guys, is a really big part of growing anything you're doing. Every plan takes some consistency, and you might see what looks like the bottom fall out of it. But if you're consistent, and then you go, well, let me tweak it here and tweak it there. Let me tell you, I watch Ebony weekly on Triple G. I watch her weekly on Triple G. Now I can listen to her on Triple G. And I can get a book and read what she's teaching on Triple G. Because when I wasn't thinking of a funnel, Ebony had called me talking about a funnel, and I didn't know what she was talking about. But I think I played it off well. Did I play it off well, Ebony?
No, you told me, and you still know.
So she said a funnel. Let me tell y'all how I picked up my phone, and I was because I'm gonna find out what this funnel thing is. But that's what you have to do. I mean, really, you really have to do that. Like,
Right.
it's like, what is the next thing? Because what I'm doing is working. That's the first thing of saying, this is working.
Yes.
This is working. This is working. And to jump off on a churchy moment, from the beginning of time, God gave us the dominion to be able to say. Adam was able to say what each thing was in the garden because he was given dominion. And so we
Yes.
have the dominion to say, this is working. My situation is changing. My voice is changing the next thing that's about to happen to me. But we have to say it. It's the language that Ebony was saying earlier. I'm going to move because I'm not going to stay there. But
Let me jump in, just add something that you said.
Please.
You said when the bottom falls out, well, if the bottom falls out, that's now the foundation for something else. So
Come on.
continue to build on it.
Come
It's not
on,
thrown
come
away.
on.
It's now the foundation for the next.
So we have another question that says, how do you deal when a person says they just don't see the point in living?
Call Ebony.
Yeah, that was an Ebony question right there.
Call Ebony.
Okay, so my first thought is then find one. Okay, that's my first thought. But then digging a little deeper than that, the fact that they're still alive brings that question of, well, why are you still here now? Right? Because obviously there's something that's keeping you,
Yes.
So a lot of times we start, again, dealing with the language. We have to stop starting off with what we don't have and start with what we do have. So what are you living for now? Right. What, and digging into that more. And I think that is where you start. But the other thing is, if you don't know, okay, let's start creating. What do you care about? What do you love? What is it that you want to see? Sometimes people want an end to what they're feeling, but not necessarily an end to their lives. And that's a lot of times we don't always know how to articulate that. And so when I talk with kids, because kids say it all the time. I mean, it's like they drink water. I want to kill myself. I want to kill, this is what I hear every day. And the question that I always pose to them is, do you want to no longer live, or do you want to stop feeling the way you feeling? Do you want to stop? Do you want to get out of the condition that you're in? And so if it's the condition that you want to get out of, let's talk about that condition. And let's talk about what are some things that can change that with that condition, so that now you have something to live for. And that's the thing, with a lot of times we feel like we are powerless over our feelings. And maybe in some aspects, because of what we've experienced, maybe we feel powerless over our emotions, but we have to begin to learn how to manage them and put our emotions in their perspective. Just because I feel that there's nothing to live for, that doesn't mean that there's not anything to live for. And we have to begin to separate what we feel from what we actually experience. So I always say to people, is it feeling or is it fact? Is it feeling or is it fact? Because they're two different things. Just because I feel that way, that doesn't mean that that's what it, that's what it is. And the other thing that comes with this whole idea of what's the point of living is this idea of invisibility. A lot of times we feel invisible. We feel invisible in our families. We feel invisible in our professions. If you are in ministry, oftentimes you feel invisible in ministry. And when we feel invisible, again, feeling versus fact, we're not invisible. But because we feel invisible, there's a sense of worthlessness and there's a sense of, why do I matter? And so sometimes dealing with that element of invisibility is important as well, because we have to begin to see ourselves. When we see ourselves, then we're able to show up to the world. So I think sometimes dealing with that element as well is important.
Yeah, I also want to add to that. the feeling of hopelessness, right?
Absolutely.
Why do I need to keep living? They don't see anything to live for. And so one of the things we have to begin to do is to renew that hope, revive the hope, because the hope, the hope will help them energize, right? Hope deferred makes the heart sick,
That's the
right?
word.
So they can't move forward without the hope, right? So I remember when I was running a group home, they many times all they could see is their families. They couldn't see beyond that. Again, that's that vision, whether you're in it
Mm-hmm.
or above it. And so they don't see anybody living a different type life. They don't see anybody else doing the things that people say you can do. And so you have to begin to renew hope, begin to show them things, begin to let them experience things, to begin to design some things for them to begin to renew their hope, even in themselves, even in mankind, even in what their future looks like, so that they have something that will ignite them to want to get up every morning and do something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, I truly believe um I truly believe the communication part. They were saying that sometimes you have young people who say those thoughts still come up, and the thoughts have been there for a long time, just revealed to them. I think a lot of times our communication with our young people is big, because a lot of times if we have to establish this relationship with them when it comes to their communication of the words they're using,
Mhm.
because they don't realize, I don't think, the words that they're using and the impact. I think that's the word. The impact. And so they feel like, y'all old people and you trying to tell me a young person. But when we start to work on that communication, which is one of the things I'm currently working on as just a topic that I'm trying to unfold, is that communication piece with the generations, because they're more or less talking about, my best friend felt this way, they shared it with me, and now I feel this way. And sometimes when you dig into it, it's not necessarily how they feel, it's what their best friend felt. But because we don't dig down to find out, where did you first get this from,
Right.
and I think that generational communication piece is really, 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 really um is really important, because the generations have a lot to share, but a lot of times it's misconstrued and it's not clarified. And so the young people, they're dealing on a whole different place. People say young people are in different places than we were when we were younger. And I think I disagree a little bit. I think they're in the same place. It's just a different time. So what they're dealing with has the same magnitude of what we were dealing with. It's a different time. So how it sounds different. Does that make sense to anyone? Am I
Yeah,
getting
I
it?
would, I think about this all the time. I think that having the experience of being in the school system, working with middle school kids, working with high school kids, and then teaching on a college level and working, with kids on, with young adults on that level, and then working with us. And then, when you think about the different generations, one of the things that I can say about this generation is that they are much more in tune to how they feel, right?
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
much more engaged in
Yes.
feelings, right? Where in our generation there was a different experience. We
Mm-hmm.
were not we were not as insightful as it relates to our emotions, because
Right.
it just wasn't what our families taught us, and
Yes.
Right.
we had to survive, we had to learn. We are in a generation of feelers, right? And I
Mhm.
always go back to what the word of God says, when it says that with each generation they get wiser yet weaker.
Weaker. Mhm.
And when I think about that, it's not necessarily a negative, because if you think about it, if you have all this insight about your emotions, but yet you lack the ability to manage it and to navigate through it, you're going to run into some stumbles, you're going to
Mhm.
run into some very difficult moments. But think about our generation didn't have the insight to the emotions, but we knew how to move on. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So we knew how to move on, but then we had to catch up, and then we had to deal with the feelings. So we were still moving through life, but then at some point in our lives, our load became too heavy. So we had to go back to doing what our kids are doing now.
Right.
So, when I talk to my students and, and they say things to me like my mental health is not good right now, or I need to, and they're using these terms, and it's like, okay, but then we have to have conversations about how to manage them, how to handle them, how to control them so that they're not controlling them. And I think that is what we're dealing with. Our kids, the younger generation now, they have the insight, but we have to teach them how to manage it, which means we have to learn.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
So it's similar, but then it's very different. I at the age of 12, I struggled with depression, but I didn't know what that was. I just knew the family that I was in and what that meant.
Right.
Now, fast forward to 20, I understood that it was depressed. So now I had to go backwards and deal with it. But now we're dealing with 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds who are saying, I'm depressed.
I'm depressed, right.
Saying, I have anxiety. If I talk to another young person that tells me that they have anxiety, because that's all I hear all day, working with middle schoolers and high schoolers. And so I just think that, again, the level of insight and wisdom is phenomenal, but the ability to navigate it and manage it is something that they have to learn.
Right. And that comes in us building resilience, helping them to build resilience. That's that navigation piece, so that they know how to bounce back and how to handle it and how to, move from there.
Yeah. And we as adults, a lot of us are still dealing with our own anxiety. That's the interesting part, is that we are dealing with it and we're still trying to figure out what to do ourselves many times. And now that we're in a place, because we're in a season, in a time where it's clearly stated that your mental health is important. Before, when we were growing up, our mental health, a lot of people didn't discuss it, but now we're in a time where it's a very big thing to understand that your mental health is important, and how you feel matters. Because before, your parent would tell you, quit. I don't care how you feel, just do what I said.
Right. I was just thinking, because my granddaughter's is 2. She's 2.5, and so she started the whys. You can't run outside like that. Why? Because it's not safe. Why? Because you can be harmed. Why? And our generation would say, because I said so.
That was the end of it.
That was the end of it after the first question. After the first question.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
Because it's a different generation, we give them additional information. I'm not sure that's always so good, but it is the generation that they're in. But again, it's teaching them to think critically and not just do because you were told to do.
Absolutely.
And we're the parents now, so we are more open to answering the things that we wanted answered for us.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it goes back to that emotional intelligence, that being aware of your emotions, being aware of how your emotions and your actions affects those around you. And also having that empathy, being able to really consider the feelings of other people around you. And those are things that we have to garner as parents, but then there are also things that we have to model and teach our kids. Like, you can't teach your kids something that you don't have. You cannot, especially when it comes to emotional intelligence. If you don't have it, you can't teach it. And here's the thing that we have to understand. our kids, they recognize it. They
Oh
spot
yes.
it. They are
Mm-hmm.
on it.
They are
Okay.
on it.
Mm-hmm.
So we can't play these games with our kids because
Mm-hmm.
remember, these generations are insightful as it relates to
Yes.
mental health. They can
Yes.
check your stuff. But
Yes.
now we have to learn that, and it's okay to say as a parent, I'm learning this
Right.
as much as I'm trying to get you
Yes.
to do it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
even as parents, when we are teaching our kids to be emotionally temperate, where we're saying to them, listen, you can't act out just because that's how you feel.
Mm-hmm.
We
Right.
say that to our kids, but we have to also live it as well.
Right.
Do we have that restraint that we need, and are we
Yes.
modeling that for our
Yes.
children?
Yes, because
Absolutely.
that was one of the things I was going to say. The research has found that mothers who are depressed, their children have more behavior problems, more issues in school, more depression, and more substance abuse. All of the issues because that part of it is being modeled.
Yep.
How much of it is are we teaching them, and we're not saying anything? Well, we have my family. We all have anger issues. Well, that's learned behavior. So we do them a disservice when we don't heal.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ladies, we are 56 minutes in. Usually I try to stop around 45 and say we 45 minutes in, but this has been so really, really good today. It's always great to have you ladies here. Before we end, if you would give some inspirational message of just how we get through how we move forward in our next 6 months. And I mean, let me stop and say you have given so many already. Look, I got notes of my own because you've given so many already. But if you could just share something with everyone uh on how we go through the next 6 months, what we can do to better ourselves in the next 6 months. Um Adrienne and then Ebony and then Adrienne, whoever. Just
So I would just say make learning a part of your daily routine. So you're going to be ever learning so that you come to the knowledge of your best version of you. And so that you're also able to adapt, shift, or pivot when you need to, and give yourself grace and kindness. Redo the timelines if you need to do the timelines. Celebrate what was good and let the other stuff go. Just continue to learn and be okay with where you are.
And what I would say is learn to live in the moment, not
Yes,
in the past or in the future, but
yes,
learn to
so good.
maximize your moments.
yes.
This is where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maximize that so that you can get to the next moment or the
Yeah,
next day.
yeah.
Wow. Um, yeah, I mean, talking to you guys is always so excellent. Because it really puts into perspective what we need to do to move forward. And every message is always a positive one. So I thank you both. I really, really do, because the things you've shared today have just been life changing. That's the word, life changing. And so I thank you for joining us. Wow. I'm a little overwhelmed with those last two inspirational statements. I'm gonna listen to them again after this over. Look, if you just joined us, please go back and listen to this session that we're doing today. It's really important. Your mental health is important, and we're here to just let you know somebody cares. A
Yeah.
lot of times, that's the smallest thing seems like, but it's the biggest thing for someone who feels helpless. So somebody cares. Contact us here at the Lioness Den. um Email us, hit us on Facebook. Just contact us, because these ladies, they both have businesses where you can contact them and they will help you. um you know they're professionals. And they are excellent at what they do. Join us again. We'll be back here on the third Saturday as usual. This was just a special session for us because we wanted to touch in on our mental health checkup. We are And I'm going to put this up really quickly, but we are still going to have our mid-year goals check-in. We are revamping and we'll have it sometime in July. So please stay tuned for the mental health check, the mental mid-year goals
Mid-year.
checkup. This is when we slow down, right, Ebony? We slow down
Yeah.
and our mid-year check-in with our goals with Adrienne Hollimon. Um, as I said last week, because this has been a 5-week run for me, ladies. But as I said last week, you don't you don't have goals, come to the mid-year check-in. You think you haven't accomplished what you want, come to the mid-year check-in. This is not a place where we are going, oh, you didn't have goals, so you can't. Nope, 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 nope. Adrienne is an awesome dream coach. And so if
Yes.
you had, yes, dream coach, if you have the dream and you're trying to get together and you have it all in your head, she is the person to help you put it on paper and begin to go through the steps. I say it every time. We're doing the Lioness Den from a session I did with Adrienne. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I think that says volumes. We're doing the Lioness Den, and it has gone further than just the Lioness Den because now we have multiple channels. But we're doing the Lioness Den because of a session I did with Adrienne. So if you have a goal, you're trying to figure it out, contact the Dream Coach. She is on Facebook. She is on Instagram. Did I miss you somewhere else, Adrienne?
That's good enough.
That's good
Anything
enough.
else, they can find it from there.
Yeah, look up Adrienne Hollimon or the Dream Coach. What is it? I'm sorry, I can't think of the name.
Discovering Your Treasures or
Discovering Your
DT.
Treasures. Thank you. I had treasures. I knew there was some treasures in there. Discovering Your Treasures. But contact Miss Adrienne Hollimon. And then if you don't get Miss Hollimon, no, not if you don't get Miss Hollimon. That's not what I want to say. And then the other resource that we have here is Miss Ebony Vaughan. Now, Miss Ebony Vaughan, I just have to tell you guys, Ebony has Triple G Living, and Triple G Living not only cover your mental health, but it covers your spiritual health. And Ebony shares every Friday on Facebook, YouTube too, right, Ebony?
Yes.
Facebook and YouTube,
Mhm.
and she gives out wisdom on how to move forward and how to put your plan together. Also, she does the same type of thing on Triple G. But if you need a counselor, Nexus Wellness in her nice office right there, y'all. Ebony got a building, y'all. You know, she got the whole, yeah. Anyway, but Nexus Wellness, check Miss Ebony Vaughan out on Nexus Wellness. Make an appointment. Go and talk to her. Clear out some of the clutter.
Yes.
Clear out some of the clutter. Help yourself to move on with the hoarding, the hoarding, because it is important to get the space. It is important to get the space in your head to do more. Imagine how much more you could do when your
Yes.
narrow path becomes wide.
Yes. That's good.
Okay?
That's good.
And with that, one last thing. Life Happens is coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Life Happens is returning this year, October the 21st. This year, Life Happens. It will be at the Connect Church once again in Baltimore. So join us for Life Happens. Save the date. And we are going to thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing with us, Adrienne. I know Ebony had to go, but thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And we will see you on the third weekend of this month with our Father's Day special. So until next time, bye, everybody.